Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. Rain fell like needles over the black trees of Afflicted Hills. The asylum silhouette, spires, chimneys, iron bars, rose beyond the crooked sign that read, "Off limits by order of county police." A single flashlight trembled through the downpour. The man holding it muttered to himself, half laughter, half breathless nerves. 1 hour, $100. Just walk the halls. His friends waited outside in the truck, yelling dares through the cracked windows until the dark swallowed their voices. Inside, the door sighed shut behind him. The beam cut through dust that drifted like ash. Hallways stretched forever, painted the color of bile. The air smelled of copper and old bleach. His shoes squeaked on tile slick with rainwater. "Hello?" His voice bounced down the corridor, smaller than he expected. The flashlight flickered, whining on dying batteries. The asylum watched him back. He filmed with his phone, no live stream, just proof to show he did it. His lens caught shadows that didn't match his movement, wheelchairs facing the wall, beds twisted with restraints. Old charts lay scattered, names scribbled out. He laughed again, nervous. "You people were freaks," he whispered, kicking an overturned gurney. Something answered from deep inside the hospital. Not a voice, a metallic rhythm. Tick, 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 like a metronome keeping time in an empty surgery room. The flashlight dimmed to a dying pulse. He tapped it once, twice, and it flared back just long enough to reveal a row of lockers, each dented shut. The top one hissed open by itself. Cold air rolled out, smelling of rot. He stumbled backward. "Okay, nope, I'm good," he said too loudly. His voice cracked. The metronome stopped. Then footsteps. Soft, slow, deliberate, coming from the next hall. He swung his light toward the sound. The beam stretched down a corridor lined with observation windows. Something tall stood at the far end, coat dragging along the floor. For a heartbeat, the man thought it was a trick of reflection, until the figure tilted its head. The light caught a flash of surgical steel. He ran. The camera bounced wildly, walls melting past in gray streaks, breath hammering through the mic. Doors slammed themselves shut ahead of him, each one groaning like a throat swallowing. His flashlight hit the floor and spun in circles, throwing frantic rings of light until it stopped on a pair of black shoes. A shadow fell over the lens. He screamed once, short animal, then silence. The phone clattered beside the fallen flashlight. Rain hissed through the broken roof above, tapping the cracked screen. For a long time, nothing moved. Then the metronome started again, steady, patient, counting time for the next arrival. The wind still smelled of rain when the 6 of them stepped out of the van. The gravel drive cracked beneath their boots, wet and uneven, leading toward the hulking asylum crouched behind the trees. Its windows were eyes, hollow, lightless, waiting. "Jesus," Ace muttered, tossing his half-burned cigarette into a puddle. "Looks like Arkham had a baby with hell." Bria grinned, tugging her hood up against the drizzle. "Good thing we're professionals at making bad decisions." Regina snorted. "Speak for yourself. I came for the photo ops, not to get possessed by Nurse Ratched's ghost." Their laughter cut through the damp air, loud and alive, almost enough to drown out the way the forest whispered behind them. Cleo hung back, eyes scanning the upper windows. A pulse of something cold slid through her chest, subtle and electric. She didn't mention it. She never did. Gunnar clapped his hands once. Okay, Team Stupid. Rules of the dare. 1 hour inside, we stick together, no crying, and whoever screams first owes pizza. Yeah, right, Hawk said, swinging the camera bag over his shoulder. We'll be lucky if we make it 5 minutes before Bria starts narrating like she's on Ghost Files again. Bria pointed at him. Hey, my audience appreciates context. The asylum loomed closer. Moss crept up the stone walls. A sign half buried in weeds read, Afflicted Hills Hospital for the Mentally Unsound, Est 1872. The letters shimmered faintly in the flashlight beams, like they were sweating rust. The main doors hung ajar, chained loosely together as if someone had tried to keep something in. Gunnar twisted the chain once, and it clattered to the ground. Inside, the dark swallowed their flashlights in seconds. The smell hit first, dust, mold, and that faint undercurrent of iron. Wheelchairs stood in rows like soldiers. An empty gurney rolled an inch forward as the draft caught it. Regina jumped. That thing moved. Yeah, physics, Hawk said. Creepy physics. They laughed again, softer this time. Their jokes felt like matches struck in a cave. Cleo brushed her fingers against the wall. A vibration thrummed beneath her skin, faint but alive, like something breathing behind the plaster. A whisper curled through her thoughts, low and distant. Welcome back. She blinked hard and stepped away. Bria's voice echoed down the corridor. Guys, you seeing this? She pointed to a doorway where the paint was darker, streaked in uneven smears. Words sprawled across it in reddish-brown, letters carved deep. They see you when you dream. Ace whistled. Real welcoming. Maybe we should... Cleo started, but her voice faltered as a loud bang erupted from somewhere upstairs. The six froze. Another sound followed, the rhythmic squeal of wheels turning, faint but moving closer. Bria lifted her camera instinctively. Okay, that's probably a rat, right? The squeal stopped. Hawk's flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied on the end of the hall, where a wheelchair now sat, facing them, though it hadn't been there before. No one spoke. Rain tapped through the broken ceiling. Cleo's pulse thudded loud in her ears. The whisper returned, clearer now, almost smiling. You shouldn't have come back. The storm outside had burned itself out, but thunder still rolled somewhere far off, dull and lazy. Inside the asylum, it was always raining. The ceiling dripped, the floors gleamed wet, and the sound of water echoed down every hall like footsteps that didn't belong to them. They'd moved deeper, past the nurse's station, past a corridor lined with doors that opened into nothing. Hawk swung his camera for a sweeping shot. Documenting our stupidity for the ages. Try to get my good side, Regina muttered, sweeping her flashlight over a wall of broken picture frames. Each held the same black and white photograph, a man in a doctor's coat, eyes blurred by time. Bria leaned in close. Creepy McVictorian must have been the founder. Cleo didn't answer. Her fingertips brushed the glass, and she felt warmth radiating through it, as if the man behind it were standing inches away on the other side. A whisper licked the edge of her hearing.
Do you remember me?
She jerked her hand back. Let's keep moving. The corridor forked ahead, 2 hallways, both identical, both waiting. "Left or right?" Ace asked. "Right looks less murdery," Gunnar said. "That's why we should take the left," Bria replied. They argued for another minute, the laughter nervous but still there. Eventually they split, 3 and 3. Bria, Gunnar, and Cleo turned left. Ace, Hawk, and Regina went right, promising to stay within shouting distance. The air cooled as Cleo's group stepped into the left hall. Paint peeled in long curls, doors lined both sides, each labeled with numbers and faded patient names. One door still had its viewing slot intact. Gunnar peered through it. "Empty," he said, "but there's writing on the wall." "What's it say?" He squinted. "Can't tell. Backward, maybe?" Cleo took a step closer, looked through the slot, and gasped. The words inside were scrawled in dripping red across the opposite wall, but she could read them perfectly because they were written for the inside looking out. "Help us stay asleep." She stumbled back. "Gunnar, don't touch that." Too late. He tried the handle. The lock clicked and the door groaned open an inch. Air spilled out cold enough to frost their breath. Inside, something shifted in the dark, slow and wet. "Okay, nope," Bria said quickly, yanking him back. "We're done here." Down the opposite hall, Ace's voice echoed faintly. "Hey guys, you hearing?" Static burst through Hawk's camera mic, then a scream. It wasn't human. The sound tore through the halls, rattling metal, snapping light bulbs in a wave. The asylum's heartbeat changed. The floor trembled under their feet. Doors slammed in sequence, left to right, like a thing crawling closer inside the walls. Cleo clutched her head. Whispers flooded her mind, layered voices murmuring in fevered sync.
"Scalpel, suture, slice, slice, slice."
She dropped to her knees. Bria grabbed her shoulders. "Cleo! Hey, look at me!" For a heartbeat, Cleo's eyes weren't her own, pupil swallowed by a black spiral, reflections of something tall standing behind Bria. And then it was gone. Somewhere down the hall, a metal door slammed open. A gust of icy air spilled through, carrying the smell of ether and old blood. The asylum had woken up. The right-hand corridor swallowed sound. When Ace, Hawk, and Regina rounded the bend, their own footfalls came back at them from every direction, faster than they'd walked, as if something else was pacing in step just behind the walls. Ace swept his light across the ceiling. "You hear that?" Regina nodded, jaw tight. "It's like the building's breathing." Hawk forced a laugh that landed flat. "Yeah, well, asthma's contagious. Keep moving." They passed through a doorway marked Ward C, restricted, its hinges screeching like teeth on metal. Beyond it, the corridor widened into a low-lit surgical hall. The wallpaper gave way to tile, the color of bone. At the end waited a single steel door, heavy, bolted twice, a small window cut at eye level. Mortuary was etched above it in flaking brass. "Okay," Hawk said, camera aimed low. "That's not ominous at all." Ace tested the handle, locked. He tugged again. The second bolt slid open on its own with a hollow clack. Regina swore. "Don't." The door yawned inward with a breath of cold so deep it smelled of winter and formaldehyde. Inside, the temperature dropped to 10 degrees. The room stretched long and narrow, lined with drawers that once held bodies. Some hung open, empty, some dripped. A single light flickered overhead, its pulse steady, 1, 2, 3, like a heart monitor keeping time. Ace stepped over the threshold. "You filming?" Hawk nodded. rolling. Good, let's make the internet proud. They moved between tables shrouded in stiff sheets. The air shimmered faintly, as though heat rose from the floor instead of cold. Regina's breath fogged. Do you feel that? A hum built under the light. Low, electric, wrong. The bulbs bloomed brighter until everything turned white. When the glare died, the room wasn't empty anymore. Stainless instruments lay clean on trays. A radio played something orchestral and distant. Voices murmured behind a curtain. Doctors, nurses, movement. The mortuary was alive again, bathed in the golden glow of another century. Regina gasped. What? Her words evaporated. Ace stood frozen, staring around in disbelief. His friends were gone. The room thrummed with life, yet he was alone in it. A man in a surgeon's coat crossed the far end, back turned, humming to the metronome. Ace whispered, "Hawk?" No answer. He took a step toward the curtain. On the other side, the humming stopped. A voice, low, calm, practiced, spoke as if continuing a lesson.
The trick is to keep them awake. The mind must understand the card.
Ace's light trembled in his hand. The figure turned slightly. A reflection caught the scalpel's edge. Red eyes behind the surgical mask watching him through the glare. The radio warped, the music stretching into static. The hum collapsed into silence. Then, just as suddenly, the room was empty again. But Ace was still there, trapped between seconds, standing in the ghost of the past, while his friends on the other side of time pounded on a door that no longer existed. Somewhere inside the asylum, a siren began to hum, a pitch too low for machines, too steady for wind. Cleo, Bria, and Gunnar froze where they stood. The sound came from everywhere at once, vibrating through the floors. Bria pressed her back to the wall. That wasn't there before, right? Not unless one of us tripped the apocalypse, Gunnar muttered. Cleo tilted her head, listening. Beneath the hum, faint and tinny, another noise began to rise, a voice caught in static, bleeding through an old wall speaker above the nurse's station. "Lo, guys?" Bria's eyes widened. "Ace?" The speaker crackled again. "Can you hear me?" Gunnar stumbled forward, slapping the dusty panel. "Ace, dude, where are you?" "Still in the room. Can't get out." The voice wavered, layered with another echo of itself, like two versions were speaking slightly out of sync. Cleo's stomach twisted. He's not in the same time as us. "What?" Bria said. But Cleo was already shaking her head. "It's like the walls split. I can feel him, but he's somewhere else in the building's memory." Gunnar blinked. "The what?" She ignored him, eyes unfocused. A pressure built behind her ribs, like the asylum itself was breathing through her. The whispers came back in fragments.
Scalpel, orderly, time of death.
She shivered. He's not alone. A scream tore through the intercom, shrill and short. Then silence. Bria hit the speaker. "Ace, answer me." Nothing. The air temperature dropped so fast that frost bloomed across the metal desk. The hallway lights dimmed to red emergency bulbs. Footsteps echoed overhead, too heavy for any of them. Gunnar's hand tightened on his flashlight. We need to find the others, now." They moved fast, shoes skidding on wet tile. The whispers followed, growing bolder. A wheelchair rolled past them down the hall, turning sharply into a side corridor like it had somewhere to be. Cleo's flashlight flickered once. For a heartbeat, she saw the hallway fully lit. Not the ruined asylum, but a clean, white corridor bustling with nurses and patients. A man in a blood-stained coat stood at the end, his red eyes gleaming like coals. She blinked, and the vision was gone. Bria grabbed her arm. "You okay?" "Yeah," Cleo whispered, though her voice shook. "Just keep moving." They rounded the corner and froze. The rest of their group, Hawk and Regina, were there, pounding on a door that led to nowhere. The metal was warm beneath their hands, vibrating faintly, humming in rhythm with the unseen metronome. "He's in there," Hawk shouted. "He's right behind this wall." Regina's voice broke. "We can hear him." Cleo reached out, pressing her palm against the steel. Her breath caught. On the other side, she could almost see Ace, trapped in a world of light and noise, screaming for them through time itself. And beneath his screams came the doctor's calm whisper, sliding through the metal like oil.
"Don't worry. I'll keep him whole."
The air turned syrup thick, every breath heavy, each heartbeat echoing louder than the next. Cleo backed away from the door. The whispers had stopped. That was worse. Silence inside Afflicted Hills was never silence. It was the pause before something remembered you. Gunner's voice cracked through the dark. "Okay, we regroup, we find an exit, we call." The emergency lights blew out one by one in a snapping chain. Pitch black. Bria's flashlight flicked on, weak, sputtering. Its beam carved out only pieces of faces. Gunner's panic, Cleo's hollow stare, the sheen of sweat down Hawk's neck. Then, from behind them, a sound rose, metal dragging against tile, slow and deliberate. Scrape, step. Scrape, step. Hawk swung his light toward the noise. The beam sliced across a long corridor and froze. Something stood there, half in shadow. A tall figure wrapped in a decaying surgeon's coat, head tilted slightly as if listening. The skin along his throat was gray and tight, and his eyes burned red through the dark. His gloved hand held a scalpel that caught what little light remained, shining with something wet. Cleo whispered, "Doctor," before she realized she'd said it out loud. The figure moved a single step, too smooth, too quiet. Bria's light died. Darkness again. They ran. The hallway shifted as they sprinted. Doors that had been open sealed shut, walls pressed inward. The air screamed with metal bending. Their footsteps echoed in strange patterns, overlapping like someone else was running beside them, but just out of sync. "Left!" Gunner shouted. "Go left!" They crashed through a door and into what had once been an operating theater. Rows of seats looked down onto a cracked surgical table. Instruments lay scattered. Bone saws, clamps, scalpels, each one rusted but gleaming like teeth. The lights above flickered. The doctor was already inside. He stood on the table, crooked spine bowed, mouth smiling behind a mask that was no longer cloth, but flesh sewn into his face.
"Treatment,"
he rasped, voice dry as paper.
"For the living."
Cleo screamed. The scalpel lifted in his hand. The metal hummed like it had a heartbeat. Hawk hurled his flashlight at him. The beam caught the doctor's face for a split second, enough to see empty eye sockets burning red from the inside. The light exploded. Everyone dropped to the floor as glass and darkness reigned. Cleo's ears rang, her head spun. The voices flooded back, hundreds whispering through her skull. She crawled toward Bria, shaking. "He's feeding on fear," she gasped. He's using it to stay alive." Bria's hand found hers. "Then we stop being afraid." Cleo stared at her. "In here? That's like telling fire not to burn." From the far side of the room came a soft scrape, metal on tile again. The doctor's voice, smooth and close now, slid through the dark.
"Then let's see how long you last."
The walls bled light. Every bulb left in Afflicted Hills burst at once, flooding the halls with a red glow that pulsed in time with the building's heartbeat. Pipes groaned. The floor vibrated like something massive was moving underneath. Cleo staggered upright, dragging Bria with her. "Where's Hawk? Where's Gunner?" A shout came from the far corridor. "Gunner, horse." "This way." They ran. The hall stretched and folded, impossible angles swallowing doorways, windows looping back to the same hallway. The sound of the metronome was everywhere now, ticking inside their skulls. Cleo's head pounded. "He's in our minds. He's rewiring this place." Bria pressed a hand to the wall. "Then we find the power source, whatever's keeping him here." They burst through the next set of doors and froze. Hawk stood by an ancient control panel, blood on his sleeve, eyes wild. "Generators below us. Mortuary level. It's like a heart." "Then we stop it." Regina's voice came thin and distant. "Ace is still down there." Cleo's chest ached. She could still feel him through the static, trapped in the loop between the asylum's present and its past, screaming through time. Gunner yanked open the stairwell door. "Then we end this for both worlds." They descended into the dark. The stairwell twisted downward forever, lined with mirrors clouded by age. Each reflection showed them slightly different, bruised, bleeding, eyes wrong. Bria refused to look. The mortuary level awaited below, beating like a heart. The air was red and thick. Machines that should have been dead for a century pumped unseen fluids through rusted pipes. And in the center of it all stood the doctor. He was taller now, spine stretched grotesquely, arms elongated, scalpel fused to his hand. The skin of his face hung in strips around the mask he'd sewn on centuries ago. His voice was a low, beautiful hum.
"Treatment never ends,"
he said.
"You are all patients now."
Cleo stepped forward, trembling. "You don't belong here." The doctor tilted his head.
"I made this place. It remembers me."
The room shook as he raised the scalpel, the metal shrieking like it was alive. Gunner grabbed a pipe wrench. "He bleeds. We leave." The doctor moved faster than light, appearing between them, slicing through air, through reality. Cleo's scream tore through the red haze. Bria swung a broken stretcher bar, hitting his shoulder. He reeled, shrieked like a furnace. Cleo stumbled toward the generator, a massive, rusted machine pulsing with red energy. The psychic noise in her skull nearly knocked her unconscious. She pressed her hands to it, feeling the asylum's lifeblood flowing through every wire, every wall. Voices screamed inside her mind, patients, nurses, the damned. She whispered, "You can rest now." The generator exploded in light. The doctor howled, his body fracturing into hundreds of ash silhouettes that clawed the air before bursting into dust. The sound of the metronome faltered, then stopped. The red light faded. Cleo collapsed to her knees. Smoke drifted through the air. Bria pulled her into a hug, shaking. "You did it. You actually did it." Gunner coughed. "Where's Ace?" Through the dying flicker of the generator, Cleo looked toward the old mortuary door. For a heartbeat, she saw Ace standing there, alive, smiling faintly, whispering thank you before fading like smoke. The asylum fell quiet. They climbed out at dawn, every step limping, clothes torn, faces pale and streaked with ash. The morning was gray, the birds didn't sing. When they looked back, Afflicted Hills was still standing, blackened windows staring down at them, unbroken, untouched. Bria whispered, "We should burn it." Cleo shook her head. "You can't burn a memory." They turned toward the van. Behind them, inside the highest window, the red eyes blinked once, then vanished as the metronome began to tick again. Tick, tick, tick. Epilogue. The week after Afflicted Hills was too bright. Sunlight stung, traffic sounded wrong. Every shadow looked like a hallway. Bria couldn't sleep. When she closed her eyes, the hospital's heartbeat came back. Tick, 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 faint and mechanical, like something buried far under her ribs. The others had scattered across town, pretending distance could bleach away what they'd seen. Regina had deleted every photo. Hawk smashed his camera. Gunnar never stopped shaking. Only Cleo had gone quiet in a different way. She sat on her porch each night, headphones on, recorder in her lap, listening. Always listening. That evening, the air was heavy with the promise of rain. Thunder growled far away. She turned the recorder on, let it run, eyes fixed on the woods at the edge of the property. Minutes of silence, then static. "Cleo?" Her breath caught. She turned up the volume. The voice was distorted, warped by interference, but she knew it. "Ace?" A pause, then faint laughter, hollow and far. "He's still here. You didn't close it." Lightning flashed. The power flickered. Cleo's reflection in the window shifted. Not her own face, but something stretched and smiling behind her shoulder. She dropped the recorder. The sound of the metronome leaked out of its tiny speaker, steady as ever. Tick, tick, tick. And somewhere far in the woods, a red light blinked once through the rain, the shape of an old asylum window waiting to open again.